A long time ago in a land far away, a young man's life was shattered. He had started out a rich son, beloved by his father. He had great clothes. He had a great future. He even had a good relationship with God. Everything was going so good for him. And then his brothers grabbed him, tore off his coat, threw him in a pit. And he thought he was going to be left there to die. And he begged and he pleaded and he prayed and praise the Lord, his brothers heard him and their hearts changed, and they dropped a rope down into the hole and they pulled him up, and they sold him as a slave. And as Joseph trudged behind the camel of an Ishmaelite slave trader, he could see in the distance the hills where his father's tents lay, where he had grown up. Now he knew he had lost it all. He had lost his coat. He had lost his position. He had lost his future. He had lost the wealth of his father. He had lost everything except his God. And in that moment of despair, that moment of hopelessness, Joseph realized that the only thing his brothers couldn't take away, the only thing the slavers couldn't strip from him, was his faith in his father's God. And so Joseph prayed. He said, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, I want you to be the God of Joseph. And his outlook on life was very bleak because slaves do not live long. And he said, God, I don't know how many years I have left, but I give them to you. I will faithfully serve you. I will work for you, and I will act like you are with me at all times. And no matter what happens, and no matter where I go, I'm yours. And Joseph kept that commitment. He was sold to Potiphar. And at first he did awful jobs that hurt his back and his pride. But Joseph did them as if God was with him. He would talk to God when no one else was around. He would sing songs he learned about God as a boy. And he would do his very best. And it didn't matter if he was cleaning out the horse stables or weeding the garden. He did his very best. And pretty soon Potiphar noticed, and Joseph got better and better jobs. And as Joseph grew up, his responsibilities also grew. And once again, he was a favored man. Potiphar gave him nice clothes. Potiphar gave him an allowance, and Joseph was able to buy things for himself and invest in some money, and he was starting to build some wealth, and he had the nicest room that every slave had in Potiphar's household. Then one day, Potiphar's wife came up to him, and she tried to seduce him. And she was good looking, and she knew all the right things to say to a man to make him want to be with her. But Joseph, he had practiced being in the presence of God for so long that the first thing that came into his mind was, how could I do this against my God? He's right here watching. This is crazy. Oh, and Potiphar, how could I do this against my boss? And she tried time and time and time again to seduce him. But each time Joseph was like, no, God is with us. We cannot do this awful thing. And finally, she grabbed him and she pulled him close and she touched him and she kissed him, and he had to tear himself away. His favorite cloak that Potiphar had given him, he had to rip out of it and leave it in her hands, and he ran into the fields. And she screamed and she lied. And she got her revenge. And that night, Joseph was in prison. And once again, Joseph committed his time in prison to God. He said, I don't know how long I'm going to be in jail. I could be executed tomorrow morning. But God, I give it to you. I'm all yours. I know that you'll be with me. And he started cleaning his cell. And he started doing little things that he could to help. And you know the story. Pretty soon he was in charge of the jail. Pretty soon he was interpreting dreams. And one day, he was given his shot in front of Pharaoh. One day, he was basically in charge of Egypt, one of the richest, most powerful, most influential men in the world. And every day, he lived as if God was with him. Because one day his brothers, the ones who had stolen his life, came and bowed before him, just like his dreams had said. And Joseph wasn't angry. Joseph didn't think, this is my chance to get revenge. I don't even think there was a struggle, because he had spent so much time in the presence of God. When he saw his brothers, he felt God say, you know, that terrible thing they did put you right here. They need some love. They need you to forgive them, Joseph. And he did. And a couple months later, Joseph saw his beloved father. Now, maybe you feel like Joseph and your life has these crazy ups and downs. I know our world is having a crazy down right now. But be like Joseph and say, God, no matter what happens with COVID and this quarantine, I dedicate my life to you. Whether I'm teaching my little girl how to read at home, or I'm cleaning my own house, or I'm working from home, or I'm making phone calls, or I'm doing a project, whatever I'm doing, I want to do it for you, and I want to do it with you. And like Joseph, God will bless you. He will use this awful time as a way to build your strength, as a way to build your relationship with him. And who knows? In a couple of months or a couple of years, you might find yourself in a very different position. And you might be glad that God is walking with you, because you're going to need him in a way you've never needed him before. God is always waiting for the invitation. And when we invite him in, he is faithful, and he will stay with us no matter what. So today, take a lesson from the slave who became an overseer, who became a prisoner, who became a prime minister. And that whole time he walked with God. And that's what gave him the courage to do the right thing. Share this video with someone who needs it. Have a great day, and be blessed by God.